Hey guys, Mix here, and in today's video we are back working on our newest project car, my new 1974 Corvette. And today we are going to be doing a couple things. So, let's get in the vet now. I'll show you guys what's been going on with it. So as you guys remember, in the last video we were having a problem with the battery. It just kept dying every time we tried to start it. So off camera I did a little bit of investigating, just because it was really annoying and it kept dying every single night. I had the battery fully charged, and as you guys saw in the last video, when the engine was running, it was not even at 12 volts. So what I went ahead and did is I got a new battery, and just to see if we have a draw or anything, I kept my multimeter in here, and I want to test the voltage this morning and see what we're at. If the voltage did go down, then we definitely do have a draw, because this is a brand new battery. But if everything's good, then it should be reading about like 12.5 or so. All right, 12.3. All right, so that definitely isn't bad. I mean, the other battery I had tested by AutoZone, and they said it wasn't even holding a charge. So the battery was definitely old on the other one, but we're just gonna keep our eye on this one, because right now it's a little bit hard to tell if there is a draw. But when I put in that battery yesterday, I actually went ahead and went to see if the alternator is working. And in the last video, when I tested the alternator, I just had it idling, and I didn't rev it up, which I should have done. But when I revved it up, this just climbed just barely past 13, which is still kind of low. You kind of want more of like 14 volts while the alternator is charging it. And what we're going to be doing is taking out this whole little center like dash console piece and trying to get the oil pressure gauge working and the temperature gauge working. Basically your two most important gauges. One to see if you're overheating, and another one to see if your engine's about to blow up. But I am going to order stuff for this, because I saw where the fitting needs to go for the oil pressure, and there was just a bolt filled in. So I probably am going to have to order the oil like pressure lines that I believe go to the back of this. But before I go and order stuff, I want to just make sure that there's nothing behind here, if they're just packed away back here or something like that. And under the hood there actually is a temperature gauge, but I kind of want to know if I'm overheating while I'm driving it, so I don't have to pull over and pop the hood and see what the temperature is. It would be obviously way more convenient to look at it in here. So I'm going to see how it hooks up. I believe they're just like prongs there that you just, put wires on. And this video is most likely going to be taking place over a couple days, because I am going to be ordering stuff so we can get wrenching on this thing. But I'm almost certain that this thing does have a draw, because the battery was at 12.5 last night. It's out now. It's at 12.3. It's a brand new battery, so there obviously is a considerable draw somewhere now that I'm thinking about it. And I believe it is this radio clock that's just staying on. The radio's off obviously, but I cannot figure out how to get this clock off, so we're just gonna check out what's behind here and see what we can mess around with. But before we go ahead and do that, we're just gonna disconnect the battery, because we're gonna be messing with all behind here for right now, so don't want to risk any type of shorting out or anything like that. All right, so now that we have the battery all disconnected, we could go ahead and start tearing into this thing. I have the center console out, and the dash is basically out. It's just kind of just chilling here. So I got this out and everything like that. But I've been running some electrical tests with the multimeter, and really just trying to figure out how this circuit board works, because electrical really is my strong suit. Obviously, I'm still learning it, and I'm not a master mechanic or whatever, but I'm figuring it out as we go along. And I've been trying to figure out where each wire goes in this absolute wiring disaster. And after a little bit, I have my continuity on the multimeter. You can hear it beeping when I hook it up to the oil pressure gauge, and that is because I found the oil pressure gauge right here. I unraveled all this electrical tape it was all held up in, and just cut into it. I am going to be fixing all of this, but it is plugged into a sensor right down there, that kind of fuel filter looking thing. This circuit board does look damaged in some areas. As you can see, it's split right there. I mean, there's electrical tape up on the top here. It's split down here also, which is where the oil pressure gauge is. So I might have to get myself a new circuit board also. And I was also testing out these lamps, because this thing doesn't have any lights when I turn on the headlights or anything like that. And some of them had continuity, some of them didn't. Like these two didn't, but this one did. So I might have to go through and just get all new lamps as well. Probably what I'm going to do next is just go through from each of these little like prong things where the plug goes in. And this one right here, I believe, is for the lamps. What I'm going to do is just run the wire, just try and figure out where it goes all the way through the firewall and everything like that. And it doesn't really help because, you know, it starts gray, middle of it's green, and the end of it's probably going to be purple. So somebody definitely rewired this thing, which just makes it so much harder for me. But we'll figure it out. I'm not sure how much I'm going to really record because it really isn't going to be entertaining watching me just follow wires around. But I'll probably catch you guys back once I find pretty much all of the wires I possibly can. Make sure that they are wired up to a power source, or the correct power source. And we'll really just try and figure it out here. I mean, at one point I was really just considering just completely ditching this and throwing in like a bunch of different gauges, like actual mechanical ones. Obviously, I'm not really a fan of the electrical ones, but I'm gonna try and get this to work. Definitely is gonna be a challenge though. Alrighty guys, so as you guys can see, I'm pulling off just the entire dash because I'm just gonna fix the entire mess under here. I keep getting afraid to take stuff apart, but gotta remember, this is a project car. We are going to dive deep in this thing and get this thing ready for the car shows, you know? So, gonna get rid of all the riggery underneath there and redo everything. All I gotta do is just take out this little plate right here that I'm probably be able to lift it up out of the way and bring it outside. Just gotta disconnect the wires up here. Everything else is disconnected, so this thing should be out in just a second. All right, so I lost a clip of me taking out the dash, but the dash is now out. There it is, and it was a little bit of a puzzle trying to get it around the steering wheel and honestly around the blinker, but we were able to get it. And probably what I could do while this thing is off is take off the AC vents, because this thing doesn't even have AC. Well, it did have AC, but, you know, got taken out because she's a race car. But now we have so much more room to work on the wiring and everything like that and just get everything working in here. And I know some of you are probably thinking that this thing is never going to get back together, but honestly, it was pretty easy to do all of this. And I want no, you know, cut corners doing this build, and I want everything to be like super mint, have this car like showroom ready, have no rigs or anything once this car is all done. It's going to be a long process of learning everything and, you know, getting everything really how it should be, but the end goal is going to be well worth it. So with that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and begin just running all the wires and figuring out what goes where and what's functioning and what's not. Now we could go ahead and take out the cluster and everything like that and get this functioning as well.
2 hours later.
That's so much better. Alrighty guys, so it's been a couple hours since I've last checked in once again, and I got my friend here, as you guys can see. You guys probably recognize him because he came with us when we bought this thing to test drive it, but we got the seat out because it's just going to make working on this thing so much easier, and I'm going to be taking them out anyway because these either need to get like refinished or I'm just going to get new seats because they're pretty bad. Like they're literally just ripping off the back like that. And like this is all spray painted and stuff. Doesn't look awful, but not exactly what I'm looking to get out of this thing. Now we can just sit here instead of crawling between the seat and the steering wheel and just getting all bruised up and everything. And plus we'll be able to clean this thing like crazy because it is like covered in dirt. So guys, I actually just did a test for the oil pressure gauge, and I just recorded it just so I could rewatch the video in the you know, after I'm done doing it under the hood. But after reviewing the footage, I saw that we actually got the oil pressure gauge to move by grounding the wire that's supposed to go into the sender, just grounding it to like metal, and it should have went to 0, which it did. So with that being said, that goes ahead and tells us that our oil pressure sender is bad and I have to get a new one. So that is definitely really, really awesome. But next up, what we have to try and get is the temp gauge. So guys, once again, it is a long time later. That's just because I've been really just learning about circuits and everything like that. I'm pretty excited to show you guys. But so as you guys saw, we figured out the problem with the oil pressure, but we were kind of on, you know, stumped on the temperature gauge. And what I went ahead and did is I added a wire to the ohms little stud because it didn't have anything on it and I can't find anything to go to it. But if I go ahead and ground it out, you can see it pegs, which means that there is power going to the circuit and everything is working on it. The fuel gauge, the voltmeter now, oil pressure will be working once we get the new sending unit, which we now know is what it needs. Clock already works, and now what I'm gonna do to try and get the water temp gauge working, let me just disconnect the battery quick. So since this thing has bigger performance heads, it doesn't have a water temp sensor in these heads, but it does have a water temp sensor, as you guys know, under the hood already right here for the sensor that's right there. So what I'm going to do is just eliminate this one. I'm going to take the wire that's going to the port for the water temp sensor, steal off this one, and then run my own wire to the temperature gauge in there. Right now I just got this kind of just ran. Like I said, I'm not really sure if this is going to work how this is set up, but it's worth a shot. But if this does end up working, then I'm just going to route it through the firewall, and then we'll get everything all tidied up from there. All right, this is going to be interesting. All right, so it actually looks like that it's pegged the other way now, which, like I said, I wasn't exactly certain it was going to work like this. So it looks like we're going to have to find out a new way to get the temp gauge to work. I'm just happy it still runs now, though we didn't mess anything up electrically. So I just went ahead and just tidied everything up with the Corvette, just buttoned everything up for now. Cleaned up everything, and I'm going to be wrapping it up here for tonight. It has been a long day of trying to learn about circuits and testing everything, but I'm happy that we were able to diagnose the problem with the oil pressure gauge. And we were getting there with the temp sensor, but still not sure if that's going to be possible just because the heads don't have any type of port for a temperature sensor. But I'm actually just waiting on an answer from someone, and we'll see if it actually is possible. In the meantime, I'll be ending off here, and I'll see you guys once we get some parts in. Alrighty guys, so we were actually back here like literally a week later, and that's because I've been waiting on some parts for this thing. So as you guys know, when we last left off, it's been a little while, we wrapped it up for the day, and we had everything apart inside, and I was figuring out the circuits and everything, and we figured out that the oil pressure sender needs to be replaced. And now that I'm remembering, we also had to get a new coolant temperature sensor. The ohms wire that goes onto the back of the gauge is supposed to go to that. Well, we don't have one, and when we tried to put it to the other gauge that's just mounted up there, it grounded out, which made the temperature gauge peg, and probably just because it wasn't the right temperature sensor. So right here, have some new parts. So right here, we just have the oil pressure, which goes right onto the side of the block. I'm probably just gonna put some Teflon tape there, just so, because, you know, I just picked it up, just so it doesn't leak any oil, so we don't gotta worry about that. And then right here, we have the new coolant temperature sender. So this is going to be threading in to the little part with the plug. You know, I'll just show you guys. So it's going to go right in there, but the inlet for that area is smaller than this. So what I'm going to be doing is, as you guys can see right here, I'm going to be using this to make a little type reducer type thing. So this size threads into the engine perfectly. This side threads into the sensor perfectly. Then what I'm just going to do probably is just cut this in half, just because it's not sticking out a ton. And then we'll just thread the sensor on top, and that should work completely fine. I know it seems a little bit like rigged up, but it's really not. It should work perfect, because once the engine starts running, the coolant is going to go anywhere it possibly can. So we shouldn't have to worry about, you know, it not going up into this so the sensor can read the temperature. I might have to bleed out some air just so we don't run into any issues at all with the coolant trying to get to the top. But hopefully these are the correct sensors. I got them for Napa, and they say they are for my year, but we'll just have to see how the gauges react to them. Hopefully they don't start pegging out or anything like that. But with that being said, let's go ahead, get out there, and get to work. Alrighty guys, so I have the little adapter right here, and I just filled it up with coolant just so air doesn't get, you know, all filled up. Basically, I just primed this thing, basically. But what I'm working on right now is trying to get this oil pressure sensor off. It's a 9/16. It's so hard to get a wrench in there. So what I'm actually doing, to get the oil pressure sensor off is I'm working from down here. I just broke it loose with the wrench. Nope, still gotta try and get more with the wrench, but got a pan right here just in case oil does come out. But this is definitely pretty challenging to get this thing off because there's no room up top and this rod's in the way because the wrench needs to get right against the back of this thing. But luckily it is tall enough under here for me to stick my head under and work. All right, so I finally got this thing hand loose, so let's see if any oil comes out. All right, sweet, we're good. So out with the old and in with the new. All right, so we got it all snug down. Now go ahead, just plug her in, and there we go. Now some of you may be wondering why I didn't put on the temp sensor yet, and that is because what I'm gonna do first is connect the battery and hook up the sensor inside, and just to make sure that it is the right sensor, just make sure that the temperature doesn't peg out or anything like it's being grounded again, or if we still have work to do with that sensor before we go ahead and run the wiring for it and you know, install it. So all I got to do is just crimp on a little terminal to the wire that we ran earlier in the video, just reconnect the battery and turn the key and we'll see what happens. All right, so the battery is connected. As you guys see, light is on. So I have the sensor just hooked up right there, just kind of hanging out. So I'm gonna turn the key in, just see what happens. Sweet, so it didn't peg out like it did before. So we should be good to install this thing, run the wiring. I'm just gonna run it through the firewall and fire it up and see if it even reads oil pressure too. So I just went to the store and I picked up some wiring so we can run just one solid wire all the way from the dash to the center of the engine, right here to the sensor. And I also picked up a little inline fuse just for some safety. Definitely don't want anything going on, messing up the circuit back there or causing some type of fire or anything like that. So we're using some protection. So wiring is all ran. I probably am gonna make it look much nicer once I just finalize everything later on, but everything's all connected. The fuse is fused up to the wire. You can see it right there. And once again, I am gonna, you know, zip tie everything. I did zip tie it just up here, so it's all out of the way right now, but once I finish everything, everything's gonna look much nicer. But now that we got this all good to go, I wanna go ahead and reconnect the battery once again and fire this thing up and see, hopefully, we have everything good to go. Alrighty guys, so the battery's all connected. It's been a while since this thing has ran. Turn the key, everything's looking good. Pump it up a little, we're neutral. Woo! Alright, we got oil pressure reading. It's got good oil pressure. Awesome. So now, we just got to let it get up to temp and we'll see if that is actually functioning. But great oil pressure, that's good, that's a good sign. What the heck? This is the horn. Awesome, no way. I thought the horn was broken. It says Hurst on it. That's awesome. Oh my gosh, this is sick. I've never been so excited over an oil pressure gauge working and figuring out how a horn works. Really hoping to see that gauge start moving. So I'm just gonna check for leaks real quick with the oil pressure sender. Looking pretty good. Still nothing on the temp gauge, so I'm just gonna go ahead and cut it off. Alrighty guys, so I've been testing the wiring and everything. I just tested with the multimeter the connection from here to the back of the center, and it has a connection still. There's no issues or anything with that. I also grounded it out to this and the gauge pegged, so once again we still have a connection, so it's just got to be an issue with this. So I'm letting it cool down a little bit, but I'm not sure if you guys are gonna be able to see. Yep, right there on the edge, I just went ahead and cracked it open a little bit, and I'm letting out some air because there might be an air pocket and the coolant might not be able to get to the sensor. there's honestly a high chance that that could be an issue. So I'm just gonna let this bleed out a little bit, crack it here and there, make sure I don't take it out so we don't have a geyser that comes out and burns me. But just little by little, see all those air bubbles coming out. All right, so I just went ahead and let pretty much all of the air bubbles come out. Retighten it down, put it back on, and we're gonna try this again. While I was running, I just went ahead and loosened it up a little bit and kind of, you know, using it as a bleeder screw. And right now it's disconnected. You can see how low it is. It's right below it's not even at the first hash mark. I'm gonna go ahead and reconnect it, and now it is just at the hash mark. So, I mean, there's some kind of reading coming, but it doesn't seem to be accurate. And unless this is the longest car to warm up ever. Alrighty guys, so it's a little bit while later, and I've still been tinkering around with everything with the air and everything like that, and been starting it and stuff. But as you guys can see, we're starting to get some temperature in it. Just went over 100 degrees, so engine's starting to get warm. My truck gets warm really, really fast, so that's why I think I was cutting it off so fast, because I was comparing it to my truck, and plus the hood was up. I just put down the hood to, you know, keep some heat in it, but my truck gets hot really fast, and a bunch of other cars that I've ever driven, now that I think about it, they really do take a while for the temp gauge to really get up there and for it to get warm. But obviously, the temp gauge is working and it is reading. All right, sweet. So now that we know that temp gauge is working, I'm just gonna go ahead and cut it off. But that means everything in the center is working, which was my main goal. But unfortunately, I cannot put back together the dash just yet because we still need to get the tachometer working, which you guys can see right there. The tachometer is electric, and what I was doing the other day is I was trying to get the tach to work, but it was just not working. It kept going back to 3,500 RPMs, whether it's plugged in or not, power to it or no power. And I went ahead and tested the plug that goes into the back of it right here, and there was 12 volts getting to the plug. So I believe this tachometer is faulty. And yes, the needle did come off, but there's this thing with Corvettes that apparently if you kind of just move the tachometer physically around and it sways around like that, that's a sign that the tach is bad. But the speedometer does work, it's mechanical. I just need to see if I could get a cable into this Doug Nash race transmission. But anyway guys, with that being said, I think I'm gonna be ending off the video here. My main goal was just to get everything in the center working, and I guess I was just too fast to react to think that the temp gauge wasn't working. But after I actually let it run, we starting to climb. So I just went ahead and just cut it off, because once it's working, it should just continue to work. There shouldn't be any reason why it wouldn't be working at all now that I think about it, because we know that the ohms wire is connected to the sensor and it has power to it, and we know that it is a good gauge. My biggest worry was just that whole little setup right there, but I think after bleeding out the air, that might have helped a little bit. The fluid is right at the sensor, which is perfect. But anyway guys, like I said, I'm going to be ending off the video here. Follow my social medias, they will be on the outros of this video. Instagram and Snapchat I use the most. But thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, comment, share, friends, share.